Welcome to Sports Geek Q&A. Here's your host, Sean Callanan.
Yes, I'm Sean Callanan from Sports Geek, and this is Sports Geek Q&A. Remember, you can get in touch and send in your question by a multitude of channels: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, email Sean at sportsgeekhq.com. You can send a message via Sports Geek Nation Slack. Any of those methods, that's how some of these questions, or you can do it in person. If you see me, ask me a question and I'll use it again in the podcast. Don't forget, you can support all our podcasting and newsletter efforts via Patreon. Simply go to sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon. Question 1 comes from Lenny Go, former guest from Tradable Bits. Asked me while visiting in Melbourne, an in real life question. He asked me, what's your take on TikTok and sports? I think it's interesting. I think it's really interesting that it's the first time we've had a real player in the space over the last couple of years. Like early on, 10 years ago, we had sort of one platform being added a year. People are getting on Facebook, then Twitter and Instagram, and then we've had a few that sort of come and go. Snapchat has had a crack and is still sort of lingering, but you cannot ignore, I guess, the viral nature of TikTok and the download numbers. Now, they are slowing a little bit, which is going to happen when more and more people sign up and you start plateauing. I think from a sports point of view, it's not the same. It's, and it's part of a new distribution platform. So we're using digital to dollars, know your distribution. TikTok is another distribution piece, but it's one that's pretty unique because the content that's created on there is pretty unique to that platform. And it's actually a content creator that actually its content gets to other platforms. So you might see TikToks on Twitter, on Facebook, those kind of things, on Instagram. So I think it's not along the same lines as those original big three where what is our strategy, what are we putting out, how often do we put it out? It is really understanding what works, what doesn't, having a little bit of a play, test and learn. Don't commit to a long-term strategy of this is what we're going to do with TikTok for the whole year because you don't know. I think learn from others. Obviously, leverage the intelligence inside your organisation. Find out who in your organisation's watching TikTok, creating TikToks. They will know better than someone who is like myself that's watching it from afar. You've got to talk to people who are actually using it. And learn and then learn from what other brands and that are doing. For me, I think the big opportunity is UGC and TikTok. It's not going to be easy, but how can you create challenges for your fans? And because it's so music-based, if you have music content, I think that gives you a definite advantage. I think we saw that with with Riot Games, the League of Legends World Champs, with their True Damage music. Their band that they again created a band out of nothing and created a song, and they pretty much said use the hashtag, make it legendary on TikTok to sort of effectively give the content to the fans and let them have a go. So, I think it is a bit about testing that. How can they get fans involved? How can they set challenges for their fans to see what comes back? And I think having that improv mentality, if you've done improv before, and I'm lucky enough to do it here, did it with Melbourne Improv, they have this philosophy of happy fail. And I really think you should be tackling TikTok in that manner. Embrace failure and have fun with it is what I would do. So thank you very much, Lenny, for catching up, and thank you very much for the question. Question 2 came from Canal Sheath from LinkedIn, a LinkedIn message. So you can send me a message via LinkedIn. His question is, how do you see traditional sports such as tennis, cricket, basketball, etc., coexisting with the emergence of esports as esports itself has become a professional sport? What then happens to the audiences of both? Canal, I'm not in the camp that they are mutually exclusive. I think we will find over the next 5 to 10 years that esports fans and sports fans are very similar in nature, and they, as I said, they're not mutually exclusive. So fans can consume League of Legends or Dota or Counter-Strike or Rocket League and still be football fans, tennis fans, cricket fans, basketball fans. So I think in the same way that we're now being given far more content, if I call sport a content, far more opportunities to consume more content around sport. This is just another choice, I should say. And so it just becomes potentially fragments the market and people's attention. That's what we're all fighting for. Their attention becomes fragmented. So there may be certain sports that they may have followed in the past that they no longer follow because esport in this case, or a particular esport or a particular title, or gaming itself, like playing the games, starting eating into that time. But I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think you'll see more sport adjacent gaming titles doing more things. So that's like FIFA and NBA 2K. But I do think you'll see sports and sporting bodies that don't have strong ties to a gaming product figure out a way how they can connect. And we're seeing that with gaming activations at sporting events. I think that will be a trend that continues because it's a way to engage that younger demographic and say, hey, we're also doing stuff that you like. So I do think they will compete eventually, but I don't think – I think they'll compete the same way as that sports have competed against one another for many, many years. So I do think it's going to be something that both can grow together. And I think what I'd like to see is more of the learning between both, how sports can learn from esports and gaming, and then vice versa. What can esports and gaming learn from the world of sport and what it does very well? The last question here in this Q&A is from Ben. He sent this in via email. You can do so via Sean@sportsgeekhq.com. He asked me, who would I like to interview? Which is a good question. 257 odd episodes in. I've been lucky enough to interview a lot of different people in the world of sport. I did tick off the first, if you had asked me before 2014, my answer would have been Mark Cuban. But obviously I interviewed Mark on episode 62. You can actually see this list. It's sitting in my goals, in my list on SeanCallender.com. Anything's possible list, where it sort of lists some of the milestones and some of the things I'm chasing down, and I sort of go in there occasionally and tick some things off. And so some of the people that I've still got on that list that I do want to have on a podcast, being a basketball fan myself, Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson are big on that list, and I'm going to keep them on that list till I interview them, but not only for their basketball exploits, but really for what they've done in the sports business world in their post-basketball careers. I think they've both done a remarkable job. I want to interview a current Australian sports captain. I've been able to interview some great sports stars and people who have played sports for Australia in instances, but I want to talk to a current captain and what they're going through. I think my next podcast that might be Mark Cuban-like would be Steve Ballmer, the owner of the LA Clippers. I really like what the Clippers are doing. I love Steve Ballmer's energy. I would love to be able to spend half an hour talking to him about the world of sports business. I think it would be absolutely fascinating. And then from a podcasting point of view and a content creator and the analysis of the media, I've been a long-time listener of Bill Simmons and a long-time reader. I'd love to chat to him about, one, his career, but also his take on the media and what he's doing at the Ringer. So if anyone can help connect me with some of those guests, I'd very much appreciate it. Thank you very much to my question askers for this episode. Lenny Go, Kenneth Sheth, and Ben via email. You can send in your questions via social media or via email, Sean@sportsgeekhq.com. And remember, I'd love your support for these podcasts. I'd love your feedback for these podcasts. But if you want to support the podcast and you think the podcast that regularly comes out on Tuesday with interviews, or this one, the Q&A podcast that comes out on Friday, you can support them by our Patreon campaign. Simply going to sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon to pledge your monthly support, whether you want to do it personally or you want to do it with a sports brand. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
You can reach Sean Callanan via email at sean@sportsgeekhq.com. Find out more about Sports Geek's Digital to Dollars process at digitaltodollars.com. Go to sportsgeekhq.com for more sports digital marketing resources.